She never believed love could survive at 30,000 feet until it hit her like turbulence. And the worst part? It wasn't the sky that scared her. It was how much she wanted to fall. Jade Monroe, 27, had been a flight attendant for nearly 5 years, long enough to perfect her smile, her calm, and her detachment. She'd mastered the art of appearing alive while feeling nothing. Somewhere between New York and Los Angeles, she'd left her heart on airplane mode. Then came Ava. Ava Carter was new, 24, fresh-faced, the kind of girl who still found magic in takeoffs and sunsets from cabin windows. The first time Jade saw her, Ava was laughing with a passenger, her eyes like honey catching the light. That laugh cracked something open in Jade, something she'd sealed shut a long time ago. On Flight 783 to Chicago, their paths crossed for the first time. Jade was the senior attendant in charge, all business, her uniform sharp, her tone clipped. Ava was nervous, fumbling slightly with the service cart, cheeks pink with embarrassment. "You're blocking the aisle, rookie," Jade had said dryly. Ava looked up, startled, then smiled, not a fake, polite smile, but a genuine one that made Jade's chest tighten. "Sorry, first day jitters. I'll move faster next time." Jade almost smiled back but didn't. She walked past, pretending not to notice the way her pulse skipped. It should have ended there, a passing moment in the endless rhythm of departures and arrivals. But fate, or maybe the cruel humor of the universe, kept throwing them together. Every flight schedule, every layover, every delayed plane, Jade and Ava, side by side, pretending not to notice how their shoulders brushed or how their eyes lingered too long. 3 weeks later, they were stranded overnight in Denver due to a snowstorm. The crew was assigned to a small airport hotel, the kind with flickering lights and the smell of stale coffee in the lobby. Ava had been sitting by the window of her room, watching snowflakes dissolve against the glass when Jade knocked on her door. "Couldn't sleep," Jade said simply, holding 2 cups of lukewarm cocoa. Ava smiled softly, stepping aside to let her in. "Neither could I. Guess the sky's too quiet tonight." They sat together on the bed, sharing stories about passengers, about homes they barely visited anymore, about loneliness they pretended not to feel. When Ava spoke, she did it with her whole heart. "You ever feel like we're just floating? Like nothing's real unless the plane's in the air?" Jade looked at her for a long moment before answering. "All the time." The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was full, heavy with something neither dared name. The soft hum of the heater, the distant wind, the glow of the bedside lamp, it all wrapped around them like a secret. Jade watched Ava's reflection in the window, her golden hair against the night sky, her eyes thoughtful and distant. Without realizing it, Jade's hand brushed against hers. Ava didn't pull away. Their fingers lingered, intertwined, and for a fleeting second, the world outside ceased to exist. No passengers, no uniforms, no rules, just 2 souls adrift, finding gravity in each other. But then Jade pulled back as if burned. "I shouldn't," she whispered. Ava looked at her gently. "Why not?" Jade's voice cracked. "Because I've done this before. I fell for someone in the crew once. It ended badly." Ava didn't press. She just nodded, quietly understanding. But deep down, something in her refused to let go. Days turned into weeks. Their friendship deepened, quiet breakfasts before flights, secret jokes shared in the galley, a comforting glance during turbulence. To others, they were just colleagues. To themselves, they were something much more dangerous. During one red-eye flight to Seattle, the cabin was dark and quiet, most passengers asleep. Jade stood by the rear galley sipping coffee when Ava approached her. "You look tired," Ava said softly. Jade gave a faint smile. "I always look tired." Ava hesitated, then reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Jade's face. "Not to me." The gesture was so tender, so unguarded, that Jade's composure cracked. She turned away, eyes glistening under the dim light. "You don't know what you're doing, Ava." "Then show me," Ava said. "Show me what it means to care about someone up here where everything feels impossible." Jade stared at her, torn between fear and longing. The hum of the plane, the soft rustle of blankets, the steady rhythm of flight, it all seemed to fade. There was only Ava, her warmth, her courage. Then, for the first time, Jade let herself fall. She leaned in, brushing her lips softly against Ava's. It wasn't a passionate kiss, it was trembling, hesitant, filled with every emotion Jade had tried to bury. When they parted, neither spoke. The only sound was the faint chime of the seatbelt sign turning on. Reality returned like a storm. Ava looked at her, searching for words. Does this mean? It means nothing, Jade interrupted too quickly. Her voice was cold, but her eyes betrayed her. Ava's heart sank. Right. Nothing. She turned away before Jade could see the tears forming. That night, they both pretended it hadn't happened. But love once awakened doesn't sleep again. The tension grew unbearable. On flights, Jade avoided Ava's gaze. Off duty, she made excuses to leave early. Ava, hurt but patient, tried to understand. But each cold glance from Jade chipped away at her hope. Then came the Tokyo flight, 15 hours, a full crew, and nowhere to run. Halfway across the Pacific, a passenger had a medical emergency. Jade and Ava worked together seamlessly, adrenaline and fear driving them into perfect sync. For hours, they fought to keep the man stable until they landed. When it was over, Ava found Jade in the galley, hands trembling. You did amazing, Ava said quietly. Jade looked up, eyes filled with exhaustion and something raw. I couldn't have done it without you. For the first time in weeks, their walls broke. Jade reached out, her fingers brushing Ava's wrist. Ava didn't move. The tension that had stretched for months finally snapped. Jade whispered, I'm sorry for pushing you away. I was scared. Ava's voice shook. Scared of what? Of needing you. The Tokyo layover changed everything and nothing. They sat side by side on the crew bus from the airport to the hotel, neither speaking, their reflections flickering in the glass like two ghosts. Jade could still feel the heat of Ava's skin against her fingers, that electric moment when she'd finally confessed the truth she tried to bury. Of needing you. The words echoed in her chest like turbulence. When the bus pulled up to the hotel, Jade stood quickly, grabbing her bag, pretending not to see Ava's searching eyes. But when she stepped off into the cool Tokyo air, she heard Ava call softly behind her. Jade, wait. Jade turned, her heart pounding. Please, Ava said. Don't walk away again. Jade hesitated, then nodded toward the quiet street. Walk with me. They wandered through the narrow Tokyo alleys, past ramen stalls and glowing signs. The air was filled with steam and rain, the kind that clings to skin like memory. They found a small 24-hour cafe, empty except for an old man behind the counter. Jade ordered 2 coffees. Ava sat across from her, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. Why do you keep running from this? Ava asked finally. From me. Jade looked down, unable to meet her gaze. Because I know how this ends. The company doesn't tolerate relationships between crew. Someone always finds out. Someone always gets transferred. Or worse. So we just stop feeling? Ava's voice trembled. Pretend it doesn't exist? That's what I've done my whole life, Jade said quietly. It's easier. Ava leaned forward, eyes shining. Easier isn't the same as right. Jade's mask slipped then just for a moment. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the quiet ache of years on the move, always between time zones, never belonging anywhere. She whispered, You make me want things I can't have. Ava reached out, covering Jade's hand with hers. Then maybe it's time you stop asking permission to want. Their fingers intertwined, trembling a fragile rebellion against everything that kept them apart. That night they didn't kiss. They just sat in silence, holding hands until dawn began to creep across the Tokyo skyline. Back on the plane, reality pressed in again. The flight back to Los Angeles was full, the aisles crowded, the air thick with recycled oxygen and routine smiles. Jade tried to focus, but every time Ava brushed past her, every time their eyes met across the cabin, her heart faltered. At one point, Ava leaned over to hand a passenger a drink, and Jade caught a faint whiff of her perfume, soft jasmine and something warm, familiar. It undid her completely. Everything okay? Ava whispered when they crossed paths in the galley. Jade nodded too quickly. Fine. But she wasn't fine. She was falling. Hard. When they landed, the crew disbanded in the usual blur of goodbyes and schedules. Ava lingered near the gate, hesitant. Jade, she said softly. I'll be off duty for 2 days. You. Same. A pause. Then Ava smiled, shy and bold all at once. Come with me. Jade frowned. Where? Anywhere. Just Away from the airports, the uniforms, the rules. Just us. Jade wanted to say no, every rational part of her screamed it. But then Ava's eyes met hers and she couldn't. They ended up driving north along the California coast in Ava's small blue car, windows down, music drifting through the salty air. The ocean stretched endlessly beside them, wild and beautiful. They stopped at a small inn by the cliffs, the kind of place where time seemed to stop. No schedules, no passengers, no one to pretend for. That evening they walked barefoot on the beach, the sand cool beneath their feet, the sky bruised with twilight. Ava picked up a seashell and pressed it into Jade's palm. "Keep it," she said softly. "So you'll remember this isn't just a dream." Jade smiled faintly. "You really think I could forget?" Ava's eyes searched hers. "I think you've forgotten how to believe things can last." The waves crashed gently, rhythmic and endless. And before she could stop herself, Jade reached up, brushing Ava's cheek, her thumb tracing the corner of her lips. Ava leaned in, her breath trembling. "Don't stop this time," she whispered. Jade didn't. Their kiss was slow, desperate, filled with everything they denied for months. It wasn't perfect, it was messy and real and so heartbreakingly human. The world around them dissolved into ocean wind and starlight. Later, they lay tangled in the sheets, the sound of waves outside their window. Jade traced invisible circles on Ava's shoulder, whispering things she'd never told anyone about her mother's silence, her father's disappointment, the years she'd spent running from herself. Ava listened, her eyes soft, her fingers brushing Jade's hair. "You don't have to keep running," she murmured. "Not from me." For the first time in years, Jade felt safe. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the room. Jade woke to find Ava asleep beside her, one arm draped lazily across her chest. She watched her breathe, the rise and fall of her chest, the soft curve of her lips. Should have felt wrong. It didn't. But as she reached for her phone on the nightstand, a message flashed across the screen from her supervisor. "Call me ASAP. Urgent." Her stomach dropped. She slipped out of bed quietly and stepped onto the balcony. The sea was bright and endless, but her world suddenly felt small. When she called, her supervisor's voice was sharp. "Jade, are you aware of the rumors circulating about you and a fellow crew member?" Her breath caught. "Rumors? Someone saw you and Carter at the hotel in Tokyo. HR is looking into it. I suggest you be careful with appearances." Jade's hand trembled. "Understood." When she returned inside, Ava was awake, watching her. "What happened?" Jade hesitated, then lied. "Nothing. Just a schedule change." But Ava saw the truth in her eyes. "You're scared again." Jade didn't answer. The drive back was silent. Ava tried to hold her hand, but Jade pulled away gently. Every mile between them felt heavier. At a rest stop, Ava finally said, "If you regret what happened, just tell me." Jade turned to her, eyes wet. "I don't regret you. I regret that we don't live in a world where loving you doesn't cost everything." Ava's voice broke. "Maybe it's worth the cost." Jade shook her head, voice shaking. "Not if it destroys you." When they reached Los Angeles, they sat in the car for a long time, neither wanting to say goodbye. Finally, Jade whispered, "You deserve someone who can love you in the daylight, not just between flights." Ava smiled sadly. "Then I'll wait until you stop hiding." Jade didn't answer. She opened the door, stepped out, and walked away before she could change her mind. Weeks passed. The rumors grew. HR called both of them in for questioning, citing unprofessional conduct and inappropriate fraternization. Jade tried to take the blame, but Ava refused. "It was mutual," Ava told them, "and it didn't affect our work." But it didn't matter. The airline suspended them both pending investigation. For Jade, it felt like freefall, no altitude, no ground. She spent her days staring at the sky, watching planes carve silver lines across the blue. Each one felt like a memory she couldn't reach anymore. Then one evening, a knock on her apartment door. Ava. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes tired but determined. "I thought I'd never see you again," Jade whispered. Ava smiled faintly. "You don't get rid of me that easily." Jade hesitated. "We lost everything because of this." "Maybe," Ava said. "Or maybe we finally stopped pretending." Jade's throat tightened. "What do we do now?" Ava stepped closer, voice soft. "We live. We love. We figure it out one flight, one heartbeat at a time." And for the first time in months, Jade laughed through her tears. You make it sound so simple. Ava grinned. It's not simple. It's just worth it. That night, Jade realized something she'd never understood before. Love isn't about finding safety, it's about finding courage. And sometimes courage looks like two women standing in the rain outside an airport, hand in hand, ready to start over. Even if the whole world was watching. The suspension lasted 3 months. 3 months of silence, of questions, of wondering if it had all been worth it. At first, Jade thought it was a punishment, being grounded, being invisible. But as the days stretched, something began to shift. For the first time in years, she stopped moving. No red-eye flights. No fake smiles. No constant departures. Just time, long, slow, terrifying time to think. She realized she'd built her whole life in the air to avoid touching the ground. But love, she learned, doesn't survive at cruising altitude. It needs roots. It needs stillness. Ava understood that from the start. They saw each other once during those suspended months by accident, at a small coffee shop near LAX. Jade was in jeans and a hoodie, unrecognizable from her polished uniform self. Ava wore a cream-colored sweater and carried a book in her hand, looking like she belonged to another world. When their eyes met, neither spoke for a long time. Then Ava smiled, soft and uncertain. "Hi," she said. Jade's heart fluttered. "Hey." They sat at a corner table, the awkwardness thick at first. But slowly the silence warmed. Ava stirred her coffee absently. "You look different. Grounded." Jade teased. Ava smiled. "Human." For the first time in months, Jade really laughed. It felt like the first breath after drowning. They talked for hours, not about work or rumors, but about life. About what came next. "I've been thinking," Ava said quietly. "Maybe I don't want to go back." Jade blinked. "You mean flying?" Ava nodded. "I love it, but I also love painting. I used to paint before all this. The sky, people, faces I saw on flights. I think I forgot who I was before the uniform." Jade's throat tightened. "I know that feeling." Ava looked at her, eyes steady. "What about you? Who are you when you're not flying?" Jade hesitated, realizing she didn't know. "Maybe. I'm still figuring that out." Ava reached across the table, touching her hand. "Then maybe we figure it out together." They started small. Ava began painting again, renting a tiny studio in Santa Monica, sunlight spilling across her canvases. Jade helped her stretch the canvases, fix lights, make coffee. Sometimes they didn't talk for hours. They didn't need to. The quiet between them was no longer heavy, it was full of life. One afternoon, as Jade was cleaning brushes, Ava called from across the room. "Hold still," she said. "What?" "I want to paint you." Jade froze. "Me?" Ava smiled. "Yes, you. The real you. No uniform, no mask." Jade hesitated, then sat by the window. Ava worked silently, eyes flicking between canvas and muse, her brush moving in soft, deliberate strokes. When she finally turned the canvas around, Jade felt her breath catch. It wasn't a portrait of perfection, it was raw, emotional, tender. The Jade in that painting looked vulnerable, alive, her eyes reflecting both fear and freedom. "It's beautiful," Jade whispered. Ava stepped close, their faces inches apart. "It's you." They kissed again, not like the first time, not trembling or stolen, but sure, grounded, whole. A few weeks later, the airline called. Their suspensions were lifted. They were both reinstated on separate routes. It should have felt like victory, but instead Jade felt a strange ache. That night, she sat on Ava's couch, watching her mix colors under the warm glow of a lamp. "So," Ava said quietly, "you're going back?" "Yeah. New York to London route." Ava nodded, but Jade could see the sadness in her smile. "That's a long way up." Jade reached for her hand. "Come with me." Ava looked up. "What?" "Just for one flight," Jade said. "One more sky. For old times." Ava hesitated, then laughed softly. "You never stop chasing the horizon, do you?" "Not when you're there," Jade said. 2 weeks later, Ava boarded Flight 201 as a passenger. Jade didn't break protocol, didn't risk another rule. But when she walked down the aisle checking seatbelts and found Ava sitting by the window in 14A, their eyes met, and for a second everything, the rules, the fear, the past disappeared. Ava smiled. Still making people fasten their seat belts? Jade smiled back. Still refusing to stay on the ground? The flight was long, smooth, beautiful. At cruising altitude, the captain announced, "If you look to your right, you'll see the sunrise over the Atlantic." Ava pressed her forehead to the glass, watching the horizon glow gold and rose. Jade stood in the aisle beside her, pretending to check the window latch. Their hands brushed just once, but that single touch held an entire history. When they landed, Ava waited near baggage claim. Jade approached, her uniform immaculate, her heart racing. "So," Ava said softly, "was it worth it? All the risk, all the pain?" Jade smiled, her voice steady. "Every second." Ava stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "Then maybe it's time to stop hiding." Jade hesitated then. In the middle of the bustling terminal, she took Ava's hand. The world didn't end. Nobody gasped. Some people glanced, then moved on. The sky didn't fall. It was simple. Human. Right. Months passed. They found balance. Jade still flew, but less often. Ava's art began selling, one painting at a time. One, a piece titled 30,000 feet, caught attention online. Two silhouettes against an airplane window, the sky bleeding into dawn. It was featured in a gallery, and Ava insisted Jade come to the opening. When the curtain lifted, people applauded. Cameras flashed, but Jade only saw Ava, standing there in a simple white dress, glowing with quiet pride. Later, when the crowd thinned, Jade whispered, "You did it." Ava shook her head. "We did." They stood by the painting, watching strangers stare at their story without even knowing it. "I used to think love was like flying," Jade said softly. "High, fast, untouchable." "And now?" Ava asked. Jade smiled. "Now I think it's like landing. Terrifying, but it's where you finally belong." Ava reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "Welcome home, then." A year later, they rented a small house near the ocean. Jade's uniform hung neatly in the closet, but she no longer wore it every day. She started training new recruits, teaching them not just about service, but about humanity. Ava painted in the sunroom, music always playing softly. Sometimes Jade would pause at the doorway watching her, feeling an ache so sweet it almost hurt. In the evenings they'd walk along the beach, the sky painted in the same colors as Ava's canvases. They'd talk about everything and nothing, about new destinations, new dreams, and the quiet joy of finally being still. One night, sitting on the porch, Ava turned to her with a mischievous smile. "Remember the first thing you ever said to me?" Jade laughed. "You're blocking the aisle, rookie." Ava grinned. "And you've been blocking my heart ever since." They both burst out laughing, the sound mingling with the ocean breeze. Then Jade grew quiet, gazing at the stars. "You know, I used to think love had to be a secret, that it couldn't survive in the open." Ava leaned against her shoulder. "And now?" Jade smiled, eyes shining. "Now I think love's just another kind of flight. You can't control it. You just trust it'll take you somewhere worth landing." Ava looked up, her voice a whisper. "And if it crashes? Then we build another plane," Jade said, and kissed her softly. Years later, Ava's gallery would expand. Her paintings, skies, clouds, women in flight, would travel farther than she ever did. Jade, now an instructor, would watch new attendants board their first flights, reminding them to smile, to stay calm, to keep their hearts open even when it hurts. Sometimes, when the wind carried the faint sound of jets overhead, they'd pause and look up, smiling quietly at the sky that once both connected and divided them. The world would never know their full story. Didn't need to. Because somewhere above the clouds, where the earth curves into infinity, their love still lived steady, weightless, and free. That night, as they stood on the beach, waves brushing their feet, Ava whispered, "Do you ever miss it? The flying?" Jade smiled, pulling her close. "Every day. But I have my favorite co-pilot right here." Ava laughed softly. "Cheesy." "True," Jade said. They stood in silence, the moonlight turning the sea silver. Ava's hand slipped into Jade's. Their fingers fit perfectly, like the sky and the horizon meeting after a long, endless flight. "Look," Ava said, pointing upward. A plane crossed the night sky, its lights blinking faintly. Jade whispered, "Once upon a time I thought that's where I belonged." Ava turned to her. "You still do. Just not alone." And as the stars shimmered above them, they realized something: neither turbulence nor distance could erase love. Wasn't just found in the sky. It was built right here on the ground where two hearts finally learned how to land. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.